coming towards the end of our session, but I want to sort of really touch on quite a big topic of e-commerce. Hugo, you mentioned it right at the outset, and all the people I speak to, we've heard it already in our discussion. The way that e-commerce is developing in China is so rapid, so fast, and it's particularly driven by marketplaces. Obviously, Alibaba being the biggest and most famous, but is it creating a different marketplace in China? And I'd be really interested in the thoughts of the panel on what does e-commerce in China mean for an international brand looking at entering it. I mean, is it different from any other markets perhaps in the world? I mean, it seems more dynamic from just the outside looking at it. I don't know who would like to start with that. Hans?
Hugo, you jump in. You're looking more at the Chinese web pages, and I can't read everything. I mean, in fact, it is a huge market, but one has to also see that, and it's also very fast growing. But the majority of the market, the big part of the market for our segment, is still a lot of clearance. There's still a lot of off price. Of course, it's changing, but one should not forget that this is a very strong clearance channel for lots of brands, and. So now this is changing because they see now this is a communication platform. There's actually more, you can reach the whole territory, and I think one has to really closely monitor it, because even e-commerce, well, you still have to ship all around China. So you need to. It's not simple that you come from here and you set up your web page. How do you basically return and how do you ship across? So you still need to have an operation to be really effective in China to be successful with the import duties, also to have the whole reach. I think it will increase in its importance, and I think earlier this week or end of last week I just read about Topshop, what they did, and you probably saw that as well, and I thought it was very good, and I want to hear a little bit more about it when they launched their web presence, and they were thinking about going to a brick and mortar store, and I said, no, we're going to go first with the internet. And then they had seen pictures. They had London buses going around Shanghai, and they made it a whole event, like it would be a shop opening. Yeah? And that might be for that youth segment the right approach, to test a little bit the market. But I still believe and this is the same in Europe, you still want to have a mix of both channels. You need to see and touch and see the lifestyle next to the web page, and you will research maybe on the web page where you can have that experience. So I think it will become increasingly important, but you still need to have your store and your sort of brand cathedral.
Yes. Yeah. Hugo, would you like to pick up on any of that and focus on e-commerce and the opportunity?
I totally agree with what Hans said. I think, first of all, e-commerce is just a different channel for me. I think, in terms of for international brands, I think it's a good channel for them to test water. Before they enter China, they could, test water on the internet, Alibaba or some other channels. And the other thing that I want to mention is that, it actually creates some complexity in terms of your price structure. Because if you're thinking about internet, you're competing against a lot of brands that are a lot cheaper than the offline brands. So the price structure tends to be a little bit different. That's why a lot of the offline brands, when they started their internet strategy, they always treat it as a clearance channel, because if they sell full price products on the internet, they will lose their competitiveness. But that's something that you probably want to think about if you want to sell your new season, in-season products on the internet. Whether you want to keep the same price, just like Sarah did, or whether you want to create a new brand, for example, like a lot of the other brands in China. They have their second brand or third brand on the internet. They have new designs, but at a lower price to be competitive on the internet. So the pricing strategy just gets a lot more complicated, when you implement your e-commerce strategy, I think.
Nigel, do you want to pick up any of those points?
Well, yes, I think it's quite interesting to me that Macy's put $30 million into a joint venture in China for its e-commerce business. And Macy's, after John Lewis, probably have the biggest e-commerce business as a department store group. And it's growing at a huge rate. And they felt this is the way they would test the Chinese market. They're only just opening their first international store, you will have read, in Abu Dhabi in a few years' time. So they have no international experience. And $30 million was not a huge amount for them, but it's considerable. And after 18 months, they pulled back and realized they've got so much to learn about what products sell and how they should be priced and how they best present it. And basically, they've taken the pages, ripped them up and said, we've got to have another way of doing it. Their partner couldn't actually help them re-merchandise the pages for the market. They've now learnt a lot, but they've taken a little bit of a bloody nose, and they're going back to think, well, we put 30 million in, we may need to put the next 30 million in more intelligently.
Unfortunately, we have to draw this really interesting, fascinating discussion to a close for now, but to help us draw it to a close, I think be really interested just to ask each of the panellists, if you were talking to an international brand that was interested in China, and picking up on some of the points we've been discussing, what key advice would you give to that business? I don't know, how do you want to?
Well, it's a long shot, yeah.
Right.
So it's not like you go to China and think tomorrow it's a big market and you open 1,000 stores and you'll make a lot of money. No, you go into China and you need to be very clear what your brand is about, understand your consumer, find the right business model and think long term. Yeah. And I think that's the best advice, because whoever comes in and just has a business model which works somewhere else and sees the size of the market and just say, oh, just going to go in there and cash on it, that's normally not going to, that's probably the 48% you mentioned, which exit after 2 years. Mm-hmm.
Sam?
Same, pretty much, I'd say. Really research the market, properly, and a long-term view, because it isn't going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
And, with the little that we have started doing, just from pure Shanghai, I can see the longevity in it, but it's going to take a long time to kind of set up relationships and do the research and kind of figure out what the market is. Yeah.
Nigel?
A lot of people start off by saying, isn't China an exciting market? And actually, I don't find it an exciting market, I find it a challenging market with great potential. But you only can succeed there if you invest the time, the people, the money, adapt your product, and also be really appropriate to the local consumer. And as we were all saying, that takes time, and it also takes a deep pocket. And if you think you do a business plan and say, oh, it's going to cost me 10 million to open whatever it is, budget 20 million. Because things, as I said, are changing, and what is right today is often wrong tomorrow there.
Yeah. So, Hugo in Shanghai, I think you should have the last word. What would your advice be to any international brand thinking about China?
Learn your Mandarin. I think the point being, you should really understand your market. You should be very open-minded, and that's a mistake that a lot of the brands made when they entered China. They thought they could replicate their success, but in fact, you should really talk to every person that you meet in China. Talk to the taxi driver, talk to the hotel receptionist, ask them where they go shopping, where they bought everything. And, language definitely helps. So be very open-minded and go out and talk to people.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much to all of our panel, and I hope that you watching have enjoyed this programme. I'd like to thank you for watching on behalf of UK Trade and Investment and the Pure team and Pure Shanghai. We hope that everything you've heard has been helpful for your business and your considerations in thinking about China. As you've heard, it really is one of the most exciting markets in the world, with lots of opportunities and obviously lots of challenges. So it just remains for me to thank Tiffany and Mark and UK Trade and Investment, but also a big thank you to our panel here today, to Hans, Sam, Nigel, and to Hugo again in Shanghai. Thank you very much all, and thank you for watching.